Hey guys, this is Justin back with an engineer's perspective, and today I'm going to be doing a sharpening on a S35VN on the KME. I already got it clamped up. I already got the angle set, and I did the Sharpie trick to find the angle to match what's on there. It's roughly 16 degrees per side. When you resharpen, I always recommend going back down to the 140 grit and make sure you really apex your edge well. We're going to sharpen on the KME, and then I'm going to demonstrate using this stone thickness adjuster clamp thing. So we'll use that on a stone at the end there. So I'm going to resharpen this Paramilitary 2 here, and yeah, I'll just get after it. Just removing the Sharpie that's on there. I can see when I was sharpening the tip last time on this knife with the way I was sharpening it, I must have accidentally tipped it up, and I just like the very tippy tip is at a little bit of higher angle. I also see got an issue back here where I haven't sharpened it all the way to the heel. So this is one of my favorite things about having the KME is I can get whatever result I want with hand sharpening on stones. I can change angles, get finishes, whatever. But after a while, my mistakes do add up, and it's good just to reset every once in a while on the KME. And that's one of the favorite things about it, is you can just kind of reset and recalibrate. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, is just kind of resetting. And a really nice thing on Spyderco's is it can be tricky to get right up to that plunge grind, but on the KME it's so easy to get right up into there. So like on most of my knives, you can see I've added a sharpening choil. If you can see that little notch I've cut into it right there. And that's just to make it a little bit easier with hand sharpening, because I do so much freehand. But if when I was using the KME pretty much exclusively, like I didn't even bother with it. I could get right up in there so easily. It wasn't a big deal. All right, we're looking pretty good here in terms of Sharpie. Getting that heel area cleaned up. Doesn't feel like I've quite got a burr actually, so I'm gonna keep going. Yeah, in Paramilitary 2 this area is a problem spot for me, right in front of there, because it's really easy to not hit this back spot if you're not paying attention. And you can get a little bit of a recurve there. Still focusing on that back part, just trying to fix that a little bit better. working the whole bevel. I'm hoping this video doesn't end up too long, although I'm not super optimistic anymore. I don't know if it's just are my hands just cold? I can't feel. Just I'm a little surprised. Based off of the Sharpie, you know, it looks like it should be forming a burr. And I think I can see a burr. So my fingers might just be a little chilly. We got a cold snap that came in. It was like springtime up here, and then all of a sudden it got 10 inches of snow and it was winter again. So now it's not very warm out anymore. So it's a little chilly in the garage, like 50 degrees or so. Okay, that's a burr. All right, I'm gonna flip it to the other side. We're gonna work this side, and then we're gonna go back to the other side to make sure that we've got that burr. Oops, accidentally went over my tip there, my bad. Working the heel area, just like I was on the other side. Fix that little bit of recurve. Just trying to hit that whole edge. Once again, on the note of using the KME to reset, I can tell that my edges were different angles. So this one is probably already got a big burr. Yeah, my left hand is notorious for wanting to go lower. I never go higher than I mean to. It's always lower if I accidentally get my angle off. So right now, yeah, I can definitely tell my left hand was a little on the low side on this knife. And you know, it doesn't really matter what the angles are, as long as it's performing the way that you like it. So it doesn't bother me if it's off a degree or so. It's my hand sharpening. But like I said, it's good to reset. Good to reset, recalibrate, make sure everything is the way I want it to be. Okay. Pretty big burr over the whole thing. And this thing had a lot of rounded spots in it. I don't even know from what, but it looks like I had smushed it against a couple of things on accident, so I'm just getting those out. They were pretty small, but they were there. Like I said, I'm just making sure that I do have a burr formed on this side. It's probably a little bit bigger than it needs to be. Not very professional sharpening going on here. So that was the 140. I've got a burr formed on both sides. I'm going up to the 300. Already formed a burr, or flipped the burr this way. So that's step number one, form the burr. Now I'm gonna refine the burr, knowing full well that I don't want it to be huge. So just keeping that in mind. I'm just trying to remove these 140 grit scratches. And this is one of the nice parts about a clamp system too like this, is that freehand, I don't like to flip sides when I don't have to, because you can leads to inconsistencies. But when you've got a clamp system, you can flip all day long as much as you want and it'll always be right. So you can really work something back and forth if you want to, without having to worry about building in inconsistencies in there. but this is the same as before. Is you want to make sure you're fully flipping the burr before you're done refining, so you know that you've actually hit the apex. And with the KME, I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but it almost feels like you can form a burr without actually apexing the edge. So I like to spend extra time on my 300 grit stone, especially 300 and 600. I like to spend extra time on those, making sure, and it's a good idea to actually Sharpie your edge again. So I'm gonna do that. Make sure I'm getting it all off. Yeah, it looks like I am. Still see some bigger scratches in here. Yeah, that's good. Work this side. The way the light is up above me, it just like makes this edge so shiny I just about can't see it, so it's not ideal. When you make a real sharpening setup, because usually I do this inside, not out in the garage, get good lighting is pretty important. Let's help you see what you're doing, something to mess around with. Work it back here a little bit more. Excuse me. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna do a little bit of burr reduction here. So I'm flipping it to the other side, light pressure. Same that side. Just light pressure, I'm just flipping it over, trying to reduce that down a bit. I really shouldn't be crossing my scratch patterns like that. I should really decide on a way I want them to look. Roughly with the KME, my preference is for them to be neutral, so they're more or less just like perpendicular to the spine of the blade. There, that burr feels pretty good. It's not giant. All right, that was a 300. Now we're gonna go to the 600. I'm gonna wipe off all the sharpening dust. I'm gonna Sharpie it because I can. So we're still in the refining process. So 600, I'm just refining it further. Making sure I'm removing all the Sharpie. So you can see I'm swinging a little bit and not going like perfectly straight when I go, but honestly, they end up pretty close to straight scratches, like I was talking about, those neutral scratches. All right, got it flipped. Yeah, I've got like a theory on false burrs that you can form on super low grit stones. That's the trick of it, is it doesn't seem to be a problem. Hard to say, I guess. You know, I've done a lot of sharpening on Work Sharp's 220 grit stone, and it doesn't seem to be a problem there. So I don't know, it probably depends on the stone manufacturer, but definitely DMT Coarse and above doesn't have the issue, but you can get a false burr on 140 grit KME gold for sure. And I'll make a video talking about that, I guess. Doesn't look like I quite flipped the burr over there. I can see the burr in the light here, so I'm just kind of, using light, or like a flashlight, is a great way to see a burr. Looks like I got it all. I can kind of flip it back with my nail, so it's kind of tricky. All right, so still refining it. Still trying to keep it small here. So these are just some burr reducing strokes here. Flipping it back and forth, very light pressure. I've found personally that into the edge this way, so you're going into the edge, seem to be better at making a burr smaller. Like, what's the best way to, it's the best way to beat up a burr. If you want to weaken a burr, you want to do into the edge strokes. But in terms of like the final minimization, you get more cutting power in. And when you're getting to such a small burr, you'll be forming it as much as you'll be minimizing it when it gets really small. So that's why I end up with stropping strokes like on a stone. Usually because you can't fully minimize a burr with just into the edge strokes, is what I find anyways. All right, so that was a 600. Excuse me. Here's the 1500. I don't know if I really need to Sharpie it. It's always a good practice to do, but I'm just skipping right over that guy. Here's the 1500. And this is already higher than I like to go in terms of the qualities I like in an edge. So I usually stop at the 600, but we're gonna go up to that next stone here. So I don't know why, see why I do a jump quite that big. Okay. So definitely got it flipped. If any of you are fans of Michael Christie, this will look semi-familiar, I guess. He likes to do progressions similar to this. DMT coarse, DMT fine, DMT extra fine, and then DMT extra fine. Sometimes he'll use some other stones instead of DMTs, but that progression, and then he'll do a jump. Now I form burr both sides, so now I'm reducing it again. And then he'll jump to the Spyderco ultrafine ceramic, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. But basically the 1500 is like a DMT extra fine, so I'll be skipping the extra fine step in of his, but that's okay. I suspect I'll like what I get out of this a little bit better anyways. Because that's what you can do when you play with your grit jumps, is if you, let's say you went from like a 300 up to like a 5K, then you can get 300 grit teeth cutting power, and you can kind of like polish them up with the 5K stone, and you get a really interesting cutting performance when you do something like that. All right, so that'll easily grab my nail. Pretty happy with how well reduced that burr is. Let's wipe this thing off. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna go up to, so this is a 1500 diamond, and we're gonna go up to a Spyderco Ultrafine. I had this made by Ken Schwartz. He cut it out of a bench stone and then, you know, made it all nice and chamfered for me. Had to make it quite a while ago, but that was very nice of him. This is like a 5K, 8K finish, or yeah, finish. It does a really good job really bringing up a polish, but as you can see how they're different thicknesses. So when you put the different thicknesses in here, it'll raise it up and basically effectively lower the angle when you go to a thicker stone. So the guys at KME came up with this nifty device here. So you just take it right off, and it's just a little shelf that you can use to adjust the angle here. So I'm just gonna move this out of the way. Hopefully you can kind of see what's going on. So I just lay it on that shelf and I just raise it up so that it's contacting this little flapper piece here. Because this isn't how a normal KME comes with this flapper. So they do that so you can stick the stone on the shelf and then you lift it so that the gap between the shelf and the flapper is the thickness of your stone. And once you've done that, then the shelf becomes your reference point. Excuse me. So you can undo this now, and then to adjust it to the new stone, you just set it on the shelf, rest it down, and you're good to go. The best way to do this is you try to equalize the pressure. So the amount of pressure that was clamping the stone into here when you made the first thing is the amount of pressure you want to be clamping your new stones when you adjust. So I'm gonna flip this over. Yeah, this is just glassy smooth. This guy is. And you can fine tune this a little bit. Let's do some Sharpie to make sure we're hitting it. And you can use the Sharpie trick to fine tune it just a touch if you have to. But I've had reasonably good luck with this. So looks like it's removing all the Sharpie. For the most part, you can probably tell how quiet that is. This Spyderco Ultrafine is very glassy. It can really bring up a shine quick. Yeah, no kidding. Definitely flip the burr over to there. Let's Sharpie this side. Yeah, it's pretty important after you've made a thickness adjustment to really make sure you're hitting that edge. Otherwise, you'll just kill yourself trying to do work with what's probably a high grit stone, and just nothing is gonna happen because you're not hitting the edge. Just checking on my Ultrafine, see how loaded it's getting. Just working out old scratches, making sure I'm getting down to the apex. Working it. For some reason I'm not quite getting the tippy tip over there. All right, let me see. It doesn't feel like it's quite hitting this side just perfectly. So I'm just gonna keep working it. There's an advantage to not making quite as big of a grit jump as this. Yeah, well, if you're doing different stones, I guess. It'd be ideal to make, if I had 2 stones of this thickness, to do a jump up to like, you know, 1500 or 2000 on a stone of this thickness, and then move up to this one, so that way I can kind of reset the bevel at this, you know, slightly different angle, you know, because this isn't exactly the same angle. It's really close what this gets you, but not exactly. And that's the advantage of using like non-custom abrasives, or, you know, if you buy like a whole set, that's the advantage of buying a whole set. So like if you bought like the Veneve stones that fit in here, you know, they have a whole set of very aggressive stones to very like polishy stones. And then that way you don't have to worry about doing this adjustment here. Feels like I got it. So now we're really stepping up to the plate here so we've refined it all the way up to this. I'm going to call it an 8K, but it's the ultra fine Spyderco. And now we're really going to try to reduce that burr. Light pressure. There's not much of a burr there to speak of. I can hear it breaking off. I'll try to be quiet. I didn't really hear it on that one. Yeah, you can't hear much of it. I'm just going to test on my nail here. Do a 3-finger test. Excuse me. I think we've pretty well reduced that burr. All right, and last but not least is stropping. I will strop for you on the KME. This is a 1.5 micron CBN. It's this stuff. So this is from KME, but it is made by Ken Schwartz. It's this, CBN emulsion. I give a direction, see I've got an arrow there that points back to the KME, so I always put the strop the same direction. Oh, so with the strops, you gotta do the same thing here of angle adjustment. All right, flip this over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the back, 5 on the middle, 5 on the tip, 5 on the back, 5 on the middle, 5 on the tip, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then try to just do like 1, 1, 1, 1. Very sharp, not very aggressive. that's not surprising. I think we'll call it a day there. So one of the things I don't like about S35VN is that it sharpens. Like if you've ever sharpened 14C28N, it feels like that. And I just wish it was a lot more aggressive than that. So I've taken a steel that already doesn't really take an aggressive edge, and I've sharpened it up to 8K. So don't know if you can see the mirror, how you can read there you go. Seeing the edge? Kind of hard to tell. Yeah, you can see how I can see the gold lettering from the mirror. It's not a perfect mirror, but it's very shiny. You know, it's easily shaving hair. I don't know if it'll probably whittle hair. I'd be astonished if it didn't. You know, very paper cutty, of course. There's just not a chance I've got a hair out here unless I sacrifice my own. I'm gonna take this and kind of like put it on the back of my head here. Oh yeah, it's catching them easy. So you can kind of like use the hairs on the top of your head and you just kind of lightly pass the blade over them and it'll catch the hairs, and that's how you can tell you've got a really sharp blade. It doesn't tell you if it's hair whittling for sure, but it definitely gives you an indication of the level of sharpness if you can kind of catch the hairs on the top of your head. But I'm not going to pull any out of my head, but there you go. You can see reflecting stuff. So that's how you use that stone adjustment, general tips, tricks, and just sharpening on the KME there. Long video, but yeah, S35VN sharpens up pretty easy, takes a polish pretty easy, but it's just not very aggressive, so it just doesn't really hit it for me exactly. But this knife just needed to be kind of reset back to a standard, so that's what we did here today. So, excuse me. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.